So now we're going to open it up to those that signed up to speak. Keep in mind, written comments carry the same weight as verbal. If I would ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, just to give everyone a chance to speak. If you have more to say, then I will give you a chance to come back up and complete your thoughts. All right, when you come up, please state your name and address. First, we have Mr. T.D. Scott.
Are comments separate from questions? If you come up, do you have to come up there if you have a question, and did you have to sign up to have a question?
No, you can come up and, if you want your question made part of the record, you can come up and speak.
Okay.
Speak right here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Tim Scott, and I live in Cornelius. And I have a few comments that I'd like to share with the audience. Most recently, Macquarie passed the highway funding bill, and I'd like to know why we can't go ahead and reallocate or reprioritize the P3 process here for I-77 with the new criteria. I think that we should be able to use objective criteria instead of the political criteria that we've used to push this one through and get it approved. So I'd like to say, let's stop, put it on hold. I think that Macquarie's new plan has been approved, so we can go ahead and roll that out early next year and reprioritize this, number one. Number two, when you went through the plan, you never really even had a general purpose lane in the alternatives. That there was no consideration at all for a general purpose lane. I kind of find that appalling, and as stewards of our state, I think that you at least owe it to the citizens to at least consider and explore that as an opportunity. I think it's criminal that you failed to do so. Absolutely criminal, and people should be held accountable for that. And lastly, one of the things that I've been trying to ask is, how much is it going to cost per mile to drive on this road? You apparently have some really, really smart people at the NCDOT, or at least I thought, that have the data, and you know the financial pro forma, you know what it's going to cost, you know the traffic studies, and no one can tell me what it's going to cost per mile during heavy congestion or light congestion. I think part of the problem is there's no limit to the amount that we can charge a potential driver in this lane. So I find it criminal again that no one that I spoke to at the open house could come up and say, this is what it's going to cost to drive on the road. You know, you got all these studies being done, but no one can actually tell you. And I think that this is a criminal situation people need to be held accountable for. They haven't done the study. Let's push it back, use Macquarie's plan, and let me know what it's going to cost.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Carl Schwab.
Yes, my name is Carl Schwab. I'm from Mooresville. Some of the questions I had is, should the HOT program go through and the P3 partner find that it's not being supported, what are the consequences to the citizens of the state of North Carolina? Assuming that they, in their projections, are figuring X number of people are going to use the road, it was going to generate Y amount of dollars, and that's going to cover their costs. If the road does not cover that, what are the provisions in the contract that do not hold the citizens of North Carolina liable for increased costs, penalties, etc.? It should be at least a win-lose proposition for the P3 partner. The way I understand the contract written now, they can't lose. The only thing the state of North Carolina is doing under the current contract is getting $340 million, of which we will pay either nothing, or we could pay in far excess of that $340 million should the usage be less than what's anticipated. And I think a lot of people here are anticipating that this is not going to be a financially viable operation. Another ancillary question, and it wasn't listed too clearly, what is the access egress from the HOV lane? In other words, is it going to be a Jersey barrier lane that you can only get on at certain points and off at certain points? Or can you get on and then get off at any time at any place?
No, there are specific access points along the way. We have them. They are shown on the hearing maps too, but they're not.
Okay. And how will the toll for the road at whatever rate be determined? By transponder, by a toll booth?
We'll have electronic gantries. It'll be all electronic video enforcement.
Okay, so, and who's paying for that? Is that part of the P3 partner's cost to put it in? If it does show to be a unsustainable project, does the state take it over? Can the state run it as a toll road? Does the state run it as a GP road?
Well, I'm going to ask Roger just to answer this question for you. I don't really want to get, that's not really not the purpose of this hearing. The purpose of this hearing is to get your input on the location and the design of the project.
This is the design of the project.
What you're talking about is you're talking about the funding of the project. So we don't really want to.
A project is the entirety of the location, 1 lane, 2 lane, 3 lane, 4 lane. The location, okay, is it going to be this way or this way, and then
And you're right. The purpose of this
Let's
hearing
just
again
get to the
is.
question. Should the company who is the partner in building it not be able to sustain the revenue necessary to make a profit? What is the citizens of North Carolina's liability? A level liability that would put in $350 million or X amount? The citizens have to pay back X amount? Or is it going to be surcharges, penalties, fees that will go beyond?
Good evening. A little bit of background. With public-private partnerships, there's... I'm sorry, is that better? In general, with public-private partnerships, there's two fundamental ways that you can go. One is called an availability payment. One is called a full concession. We have opted to go with the full concession. The difference is who takes that revenue risk. In other words, you build it and they don't come, whose risk is that? With an availability payment deal, that's the DOT's risk, the taxpayer's risk. With a full concession, it's the private partner's risk. Okay, so that's a little bit of background. We decided early on we did not want that risk. That's something we're going to shed to our private partner. So if we build it and traffic does not come, then that essentially is their issue. Let's blow this to an extreme. They default on the contract. Okay? Either because the revenue's not there or they're not performing to the very strict standards we've got in the contract, they default on the contract. What happens then is when we split this financing of the project into 3 parts. Jamal said that a third was federal and state typical funding sources, and the other 2/3 was brought by the private partner. Let's break that down a little bit further. Of that 2/3, roughly a third of it is private equity investors. Generally, these are pension funds that are held by policemen's organizations, employees organizations, things of that nature. But they're private investors. Another third would be debt that the private partner takes on, Okay, this could be in the form of TIFIA loans, private activity bonds, or other mechanisms. And then the third is the 170 that was alluded to from typical federal and state funds. Okay, so that's the breakdown of financing. In the event of a contractor default, and they leave, it's failing, then the private equity investors, they have no recourse against the state whatsoever. So that third of the cost is a free third of the project to the DOT. The other third, to protect lenders, and in order to get certain lending ratings that are required for the project, the DOT takes on 80% of that debt. Okay, let me make sure I'm clear. It's 80% of the debt that's outstanding at the time for 1/3 of the financing. It's not 80% of the $550 million. So we've invested 170, let's say, and that's a maximum right now. They're going to be bidding this, so we're hoping to drive that cost down. So we invest that portion, the private equity investors lose their money with no recourse to us, and then the debt, we take on a burden of 80 cents on the dollar of that debt portion. Worst comes to worst, we end up getting a $500 million facility for essentially pennies on the dollar, half price, something to that effect. Yes.
But we are recording, so I would ask that, we gotta stay within the,
If I can just mention, I know you, to respect what you need to do here, I will say that I will be around until the last person leaves tonight. So if there are other questions that we don't have time for that relate to P3 and contract mechanisms, I will be around.
thanks, Roger. Next, we have Mr. Doug King.
Good evening. My name is Doug King. I live in North Charlotte. I've lived in northern Mecklenburg County ever since I moved here in 1995, and have used I-77 frequently, and have seen what's happened over the years. One quick comment is I was reading the presentation. One of the justifications for this project and using the hot lanes is emphasize the word immediate, and implying that this was all of a sudden NCDOT figured out that we got a problem here. I can tell you there's been a problem for 15 years probably. This is not an immediate. It may be just on the radar screen of NCDOT. It is not an immediate need. It has been a need for a very long time. I have some questions, but also one thing I want to get into the record. I would like to ask a little survey of the people here, but I want to enter the record. How do we do that? No, we're
I would say
just
send in a
I
petition.
want to raise the hands, I want to count, and I want that put in the minutes.
Okay, well, we are recording.
Okay, but it needs to be in the minutes. In other words, I don't want to just say hands raised. I want somebody to enter, say what the count is. This is my question. How many people attending here tonight are residents of Mecklenburg or Iredell County who travel on I-77 on a regular basis? How many people here use I-77 on a regular basis? If somebody from NCDOT would make a rough count here, I don't think it's up to me to do that. I'd appreciate it if you would.
90%.
Okay. Of those, I would like to have raised hands. How many are in favor of this project and how many are opposed to it? How many are in favor of this project the way it's conceived? Do I see a hand? Not one. Not mine either. How many are opposed? I would like that put in the record, even if it's not a number, that everyone would be unanimous, that everyone that attended here is opposed to this project.
I object to that, and I would like to abstain from voting.
Yes.
I object to that. I would like to abstain from voting. I'm a member of the press, and I would not like you to count me in opposition or support.
Well, I ask for those people that use it on a regular basis.
Okay, well,
What media outlet?
everyone did vote, but that's fine.
Please just vote out.
Yeah, a good number of people that voted. Yes.
Right. I don't know why you objected to that, sir, but
I abstain.
thank you. You didn't have to vote. Thank you. Now, my question, I have a question. What happened, I understand there are four bidders, or four pre-qualified bidders, I'm not sure the terminology. What happens if only one of those bidders ends up presenting a qualified bid? What happens? Do they automatically get it? Is it?
No, I don't know the answer to that. Again, that's an answer for Roger. I don't know. It is part of the record. We will get an answer back to you because it is part of the public record.
Good. Thank you, appreciate it.
Public forum, can you go ahead and answer that, Roger, because we're all here to ask questions and hear answers.
Yeah, but again, this is still not the forum we're not here to talk about the funding. Again, the purpose of this meeting is to get your input on the actual design and the location of the project. When I talk about the location, I'm talking about the different build alternatives south of 85. Outside of that, it's the same, all of them are the same, it's the same location. We want to let us know, do you like build alternative 1, 2, or 3? Those are things that we're here to get from you tonight. Roger is here, we had a booth set up, questions about the P3 funding. So if you do have those questions,
Will there be another
Excuse
hearing
me,
to
but
talk
you
about the
talked
things
about
that
funding
can't
in your
there may not be,
presentation.
there may not be another hearing, but if you request those post-hearing meeting minutes, we'll make sure that we get an answer back to you. So any questions that are asked tonight, we will get an answer back to you.
Everybody here?
Yes, if you request
No,
a
are you
copy.
going to answer this question to everybody who's in attendance?
We'll answer this, but we're not going to keep going down this road of answering P3 questions.
We're not going to go down this road.
How to get answers to our questions.
We will get answers to you. Again, we're going to sit down and go through this. We will go through each and every comment that's been received, and there will be a response made for each comment.
Essentially, we have a very comprehensive, we call an engineer's estimate. This is a reasonableness check that's required by state and federal regulations. So we have to do our own due diligence to determine what is the construction cost. And it's a very detailed process. As a matter of fact, we're about to go through a 5-day cost review process with Federal Highway to make sure that our numbers are good. And so if we have one bidder, then we look at that estimate. And if it's within reason of our estimate, then we can proceed. If not, we cannot. It's really that simple. If someone comes in double our estimate, this is not a deal we want. So those are the protections that we
So potentially, if the bidders are outside the scope, then you start over, I guess. In other words, if they all are too expensive.
Essentially, that's right. However, we have had a very interactive process with them. We've had 9 one-on-one meetings with each of these bidders, talking about draft contract language and responsibilities of the scope of the work. So we don't anticipate surprises along those lines.
If you bear with me, I have a quick question, at least so we get some right. I've talked to someone in the room over next door. It seems to be that the toll pricing is complex, usually complex formula. And it's going to be all electronic. So how does a user of the hot lanes know when they get a bill that is accurate? There is no paper trail audit. There was a comment made by someone over there that they think maybe you can get on the the hot lane, that there will be a flash or something that tells you this is your rate for the time that you're on there. Because that rate, the person behind you could have a different rate, is the way I understand. Because if the congestion is built up, then 10 minutes later, somebody's going to pay a higher rate. Well, my question is, how do you know that you're being charged correctly? What facilities are there to make sure that the vendor who operates this is charging fairly? Are there audits? So forth? I'm hoping that you will have that in the answers. Okay? And then finally, I understand there are very few completed hot projects in the United States. Maybe any. Exactly. I would like to know how many exactly have been done in the United States, this type of project with a public-private partnership. How many in the United States? And then what about other countries, maybe where this idea originated? What is the history there? Yeah, no, the idea is, are we buying a pig in a poke? Are we agreeing to a really massive project and we really don't know what we're getting? And that's my concern.
Well, there are hot lanes in operation in 8 United States now.
There are, yeah, and my question was, how many exactly, because I didn't answer, how many exactly are there completed? I'm not talking about maybe under construction. I mean, they're completed, and then maybe, like I say, worldwide. I'm just curious about how much of a history is there of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Patty Martin. The answer to that question is 18 projects.
18 in the U.S.?
Yes.
How many are profitable? Excuse me, sir. How many are profitable?
Sir, this is an orderly meeting. If you want to speak, you will get your chance to come up and speak. Ms. Marshall.
My name is Patty Marshall. I live in Mooresville. I wanted to make a comment. This is from Macquarie's website about the strategic mobility formula. It is a data and fact-driven to ensure we are investing in areas with the most pressing needs, to reduce travel time, reduce congestion, attract business, enhance safety, improve the quality of life for all North Carolinians. At state level, project selection will be 100% data-driven. The data include benefit cost analysis. Does it reduce travel time, and how much does it cost? Does it reduce existing congestion? Does it increase economic competitiveness? And will it increase the value of economic competitiveness within the criteria? Does that mode carry freight? Is it multi-modal? That's right from the website. So my understanding is that the strategic mobility formula has been approved by Macquarie. I'm not sure exactly. It's going to be put in place. So this is a 10-year transportation plan, the strategic mobility formula. So I'm asking, will you put the widening of I-77 to this formula? I would like to hear your comments on why you will or you will not allow this project to be put to this mobility formula. If not, why not? And if you did, where do you think it would rank? Or let's find out and see where it would rank. That's my question. I don't know if that could be answered tonight, but I would like an answer.
The new formula basically impacts projects that are not to be led for July 2015.
Okay.
So this project is actually scheduled to go ahead of.
So what you're saying is this has already been approved?
But the current schedule is prior to July 2015.
So I thought
that's my understanding.
I thought the legislature had to approve, make final improvement on this P3 project.
As far as it's scheduled.
It's scheduled before it's done deal. Just wondering.
I'll try to be quick. I've said this in another public forum. It's not a done deal until the contract's signed. And that It sounds like a very brief response, but that is very true. And you are accurate, ma'am, that there are reporting requirements to certain committees of the General Assembly that are required for this project as part of House Bill 817, which indeed has passed.
Next, we have Mark Neroni.
Hello, my name is Mark Durrani. I'm from Cornelius. My first question, and what really struck me is when you presented the downtown to, I want to say I-85 section.
Can you speak in the mic?
Yeah,
It's hard to hear you back.
When you described the downtown to I-85 section, in alternative 3, only converted an HOV lane to a hot lane at a cost of $240 million, which is almost half the budget. So explain to me, and this kind of broadens out to the whole project, what is the difference in cost of a hot lane project versus just dropping 2 more general purpose lanes? Basically the same thing without the hot lane piece in it, without all the flyovers, without all that. What is that cost differential? How much are we paying just so we can have a private partner involved and have a funding mechanism that's unique? And you know, I drove through Greensboro on the way to Richmond a few weeks ago, 4 lanes each way for 30 miles. I suspect the traffic counts on I-40 at that point are nowhere close to I-77. So I guess the first question, I want to get off on the statement, but the first question is, what is that cost differential?
I don't actually have the cost for the general purpose widening.
Well, maybe I can rephrase the question. How much of the cost is to support the infrastructure, whether it's flyovers?
Well, I believe what you're asking is for a hot lane, for the construction of a hot lane versus a general purpose lane.
And all the things that go
It's-
behind.
Yeah, it's a little less than 10%.
Then how come an existing HOV lane that exists, converting it to a hot lane costs $240 million?
Because you have to put the gantries up, the electronic.
Okay, so $240 million for the hot lane infrastructure.
Just said 10%. Now you're saying it's 140 million. That's not 10% of 500 million. It's
Just to be,
50%.
alternative 3 includes all the hot lanes from I-85 north.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the difference between build alternative 3 and alternative 1 and 2 was just that there is no improvements, there's no hot lanes added to 277. And the only thing south of 85 is the conversion of the existing HOV lane to a hot lane. North of 85, all the alternatives are the same.
I'd still like to know the exact numbers on the cost, so that would be a question I'd rather follow up on. If you guys could. The difference in cost, right?
The difference in cost versus a general purpose lane.
Versus a hot lane alternative. Because I understand there's flyovers, there's a whole bunch of infrastructure that you need, including a berm to keep people from getting in different points. So that would be my first question.
I can give you a quick rough estimate because we have looked at those numbers. What I'm understanding is a very prudent question, very simple question. You're basically building the same things. What's the difference between putting in the tolling equipment and whatever extra width you need to make it a high occupancy toll lane? And that number is worth about $50 million, or roughly 10% of the capital expenditures.
Okay. My next question is really the impact on the general purpose lanes. Because I think as DOT experts, I think everybody's aware that whenever you have people merging into a lane, it causes that lane to slow down. Right now, we currently have merging from just the right side, And with the new hot lanes, we're gonna have people merging in, not only from the right side, but now from the left side. So the general purpose lanes are now gonna get more clogged. So how does your approach, how do these designs address the general purpose lanes and their congestion? Or is the idea just to force everybody to pay? You know, if you look at what happened in Virginia with the newest hot lane, it's $5 to $6 each way, round trip, or each way, so $10 to $12 for a commute. So my math isn't that good, but that's 24. If you commute every day, it's $2,400 to $2,800 a year. A lot of people can afford that. So I'm sorry, but please answer the merge question and the rest of this cost and the general purpose.
Well, I think a lot of the studies show that the general purpose lanes will see benefit from those hot lanes.
I live in California and I can attest that that's not true. I've used the lanes and boy, I love getting into the hot lanes. It's sometimes very difficult for that. And I feel bad for stoppers in general purpose lanes. So I live there, I know. I've experienced it. So
Can you show us the data from that study? You're referring to a study, can you show us the data to that study you're referring to?
Yeah, Carl, do you have
You got, it's part of the traffic operational study that was done, and we put a copy of it on the website to review.
I can review it on the website. I have personal experience, and maybe in the very beginning when we have a couple lanes and we get some traffic as the population increases, those general purpose lanes are a parking lot. And I feel that you guys are giving us an alternative. I feel that you guys are giving us an alternative. You can have a hot poker in the right eye or a hot poker in the left eye. And so I can either sit in a parking lot for an extra hour a day, or I can pay $2,400 to $2,800 a year to get to work. That doesn't seem like a very friendly solution. To me, this is a monument to government failure. I'm not pointing to the DOT. I'm pointing to our government. And we're institutionalizing it, and we're doing it for 50 years. And then one last comment, because I know other people want to speak. One of the parts of the cost that the people of the great state of North Carolina are contributing, we are contributing that precious right of way to this project, and we're tying it to a public-private partnership. And what we donate, then we get people that can afford to pay $2,500 a year, get to use those lanes, get to use that right of way. To me, that just doesn't seem right. Thank you very much for your time.
we'll encourage I don't know if I mentioned it, but buses, transit riders, you get to ride free, and motorcycles. Next, we have Mr. Mark Gibbons.
My name is Mark Gibbons. I live in Huntersville, North Carolina. And I do have 2 questions and then a couple of comments. One of my questions is, it was mentioned here that there's been face-to-face meetings with the possible companies that could get the contract, and I assume a good business practice that back and forth that has guided what the RFP might look like or does look like. But my question is, was there an independent review done of the RFP, and by who, what entity or company did that?
You are accurate. Those interactions with the potential bidders are very important. A lot of times they'll come to us and say, do you realize the way you phrased this, it's going to cost you an extra $10 million. Thank you, we didn't mean that. So there's a lot of contractual clarifications that occur during that interaction. We have a team that's worked on this RFP. Sometimes it seems day and night. We have technical experts from Parsons Brinckerhoff. We have financial, commercial experts from a firm called KPMG. We have our Attorney General's office involved, as well as outside legal counsel from Nossaman, who specializes in these deals. We also have probably about 15 different business units, and I would venture to say 50 to 70 people at DOT that are looking at various parts of this RFP and putting this together as a team. So to say, have we hired someone else to come in and do an independent review? No. We feel that as a team, we've come together and done this. And I will say the Federal Highways are partner in this, and they've also been reviewing the RFP and engaging their experts as well.
Thank you. And I don't know if this question will touch you also, sir, but it is set up there in August of 2013, the FONSI findings should be made public or should come back. Who makes that finding? I assume it goes off the environmental impact statement and then it's reviewed, but who actually makes the finding that it's good? There's no significant impact.
FHWA.
FHWA, okay, that's okay. All right. A couple of comments on this. We've all, and several of the speakers that talked tonight, worried about the cost to the taxpayer, and obviously that should be on everyone's mind, including the DOT and our legislature that is approving this. What concerns me is that we are a very low population density area, urban area, compared to a lot of the places that these other 18 hot lane projects are. If it's correct that I've read correctly, I'm not an expert on this, but I've done a lot of research on it in the last few months. If I'm not mistaken, we need to take in about $20 million plus a year in revenue for this project to be feasible, viable. And one project I know off the top of my head that's a roughly the same size population as we are is Salt Lake City. They're only bringing in about $600,000 a year in revenue off of their hot lane project. I don't know if we're comparing apples and oranges, but it kind of scares me that that amount of money has to be generated, and it could fall on the backs of the taxpayers, not only here, but of all of North Carolina. So that's one comment. Mr. Robbins, you mentioned that we want to support or to encourage carpooling. For those of us, and we raise our hands, almost everybody here drives up and down I-77 on a daily basis, and when we look over in that HOV lane that exists there now. My wife and I, since this project has been on the books and we've been interested in it, looking at it, we count every time we come from Charlotte up or here down. And the numbers many times are between 3 to 5 cars we'll see in the HOV lanes between Charlotte and Huntersville, where I live. We see the bus once in a while go by with very few people on it. And now the number that you can get into that lane to drive for free goes up by one person. We're an independent people in states like North Carolina. That's why a lot of people move here, and you'll hear some accents that aren't from here, and that's why they come here. People aren't stopping. We don't have slug lanes like they do in Washington, D.C., which I've lived in for a lot of years in my military, and I saw the hot lanes up there, and personally I didn't think they worked very well either, but I have no numbers to support that either way. The last thing the other gentleman was asking, are these 3 projects, 3311, 5405, and 4750, all priced separately, or are they all priced together? Is that broken out what each of them costs, or are they one project?
They one project. I don't know if we broke it out by, I believe it's one project.
Because, that's another comment. Those of us here tonight, obviously because of the location of the meeting, and I know tomorrow night you'll have a meeting in Charlotte for the folks that are affected by this in Charlotte, but every morning the traffic stinks between exit 30 and exit 19. And when you get past exit 19 going south, it's a drag race to Charlotte. 70, 75 miles an hour, no problem. In the afternoon, you come out of Charlotte, you go 70, 75 miles an hour, and when you come around that long sloping curve and see the new exit 19, and that's when you start to see taillights. And you go, I should have got off there. But anyway, the problem is there. And I realize we make strategic plans and build for the future, but we're spending $550 million in the dollars it was projected at. I don't know what it'll end up at. We all know projects go over. But the problems between exit 30 and exit 19, one general purpose lane on each side would fix the problem for probably years to come. Taxpayer and a driver, but it looks like that would solve the problem to me. But thank you for your time tonight and information. Thank you.
Next we have Carrie Miller.
Excuse me.
I'm Kerry Miller from Morrisville. Just have one question. Out of 18 projects, how many are profitable?
Depends on how you define profitable.
The governance.
Of those 18 operational projects, 17 are collecting revenue above operations and maintenance. The other is right about at that line, depending upon which month you're looking at, it's either above or below. Of those 18 projects, only one is a public-private partnership, and that just opened in November, so we don't have a date on that.
So they're not covering then the cost to build them? They're just covering current operations?
The majority of the facilities that are opened were converted HOV lanes. And those HOV lanes were operational for many, many years prior to the hot operations. As a result, none of the capital costs of those HOV lanes were associated with payment from the revenue that are collected on the hot lanes. However, there are some limited capital expenditures that were made for converting those facilities to hot lanes. And in those situations, then revenue that's collected from the hot lanes have gone to pay back for those capital expenditures. Most have not been operational yet for 10 years. There's only 2 that have been operational for more than 10 years. So as a result, we still don't know overall to what extent those would be above and beyond the repayment of capital.
But this will be one of the first that is going to pay for itself, supposedly?
Well, they all, have been paying for it.
No, I mean all of the costs that of building it are lumped into this.
In terms of an answer, in terms of this project, and I'll look back to Roger on this one. To my knowledge, Michael help me with this one as well, there aren't any public-private partnership projects that don't include a subsidy and or contribution from the public sector towards that project. So the revenue that's collected, for example, on comparable projects in Washington, D.C., the 495 Beltway, which is the one that opened in November, that only had somewhere in the vicinity of around 25-30% of the revenue, or of the total cost of that project being paid for with revenue from the toll collections.
And how much is the percentage of this one?
Can I ask a quick question? Of the 17,
Hold on,
how many are in the same geographic size as Charlotte? Washington D.C. is far greater population density than Charlotte. That's the point we're making.
Do you want to recognize the gentleman after I address this question? Okay. As I understand it, you're asking how does this project will pay for itself, and I don't recall anyone presuming that the project will pay for itself. Hence the $170 million public funds subsidy to subsidize initial construction. Now it is intended that the deal would pay for the continuing operation and maintenance of the project and a return on the investment by the private partner. Otherwise, they won't bid the project.
The previous gentleman had stated there was 18.
Hold on, sir, did you?
Yeah, just
wait,
real
wait
quick.
1 second, I I kind of let a few questions be asked, but we have to maintain order. Next, we have Mr. Ron Burst, and I'll give you a chance to come up and speak.
My name's Ron Burst. I live here in Mooresville. I've lived here 25 years. On your handout, you state here that I-77 is a critical north-south transportation corridor for the Charlotte metro region. I think everybody can agree to that. My question is going to be very similar to the young lady that was up here just a few minutes ago. I read in the Charlotte paper where it stated that if those hot lanes were not, if this project did not go through, that it might be 20 or 25 years for funding of traditional road construction. Is that correct? That's correct. Okay, my question is this. How or where can I find the list of the projects that are going to be ahead of this project? The 20 years of construction that are more important than this project. How can I find that list?
You can look at the transportation improvement program.
It's hard for me to believe that there's 20 years worth of projects that are going to be more important and more vital than this one right here. That's really hard.
Next, we have Mr. Kurt Niles.
Get him, Kurt.
My name is Kurt Noss. I live in Cornelius, North Carolina. Thank you, gentlemen, for the opportunity to have a few moments of comment. I really appreciate it. I do have a couple of comments and a question. Actually, I have a couple more comments based on what I've heard going on here that I feel I need to address.
Hard to hear you.
I'm sorry. Is that better? It seems like this mic is a little bit light.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The first is, someone asked how many hot lanes are profitable. I looked at a publication by the federal government called the Managed Lanes Pricing Guide, because the detailed financials of 11 privately operated hot lanes, 7 of those hot lanes currently lose money. The 4 that make money are located in Houston, Miami, Washington, D.C., and Southern California. All of those have a population greater than 5 million. No hot lane with a population less than $2 million makes money. That's the first point. The second point is I feel compelled to address this notion that if we build a general purpose lane solution, it's only going to be $50 million less than if we build a hot lane solution. The problem with the hot lane solution is that it requires the replacement or construction of 9 bridges. 5 of those bridges are currently existing. None of those bridges are on NCDOT's structurally deficient list or functionally deficient list. So we're going to spend tens of millions of dollars replacing structurally sound bridges. Further, we're going to add several other $1 million adding lanes where there are already lanes in Charlotte. If you look at a 2009 Parsons-Brinkerhoff study, they said if you just add general purpose lanes, basically from Huntersville up to Langtree, the cost of that was $75 million. Now, granted, that study is a little bit dated, but it seems to me that if you build the general purpose lanes where you need them, we're talking about a fifth of the cost that we are for the hot lane solution. Now to the comments that I was originally going to get to. This current proposal is, as far as the capital goes, one of the largest hot lane proposals, the largest being the capital Beltway one that was $2.1 million. That's being funded by a P3 type of arrangement. It is located in one of the smallest metropolitan areas. And as one gentleman pointed out, a comparable metropolitan area is Salt Lake City. That hot lane grosses about $600,000 a year. This hot lane would need to grow somewhere between 15, 20, I've heard estimates as high as $30 million a year. So it kind of begs the question. I asked myself, who would fund this? Who would underwrite this and issue debt against this if your costs are expected to be 20 times your revenue? It doesn't make sense. And I've asked that question before, and the answer I got was, well, there are professionals that do this. There are banks that would look at this, actuaries, and they'll decide whether or not they're going to underwrite that. I really didn't care for that answer because it didn't make a whole lot of sense, so I started looking at the agreement. And the agreement has 18 pages in it. It's called Terms for Termination Compensation. Basically, if the NCDOT terminates the contract, the developer gets compensated. If the NCDOT defaults on the contract, the developer gets compensated. If the developer terminates the contract, the developer gets compensated. If the developer defaults on the contract, the developer gets compensated. Now, folks, I've been in business for 25 years, and I haven't defaulted on a contract, and I sure as heck would never sign a contract where I have to pay somebody if they default. And so then I asked myself, well, who made this contract? And we heard a little bit more detail, and I appreciate some of the rigor that's done behind this, but the word I had is it was primarily done by Nassamund, which is a California-based law firm, by Parsons Breaker Hoff, which is a P3 consulting firm, and by KPMG, which is a P3 consulting firm. So the bulk of the commercial aspect of it has been written by the tolling industry, which would help explain why you have clauses in the contract that, for instance, allow this private company to collect your medical history, your legal history, and your credit history. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know why I need to give somebody my medical history in order to drive on a freeway lane. But not only are they allowed to do that, but they can also share that with other government entities and other collection agencies. So I guess I'm getting to the point where I have to ask, who really is looking out for the taxpayer in this particular agreement? And my question is, can we have an independent, somebody who does not have a vested interest, and I count the NCDOT as having a vested interest, and I certainly count the PBs and the KPMGs and the law firms having a vested interest, can we have an independent, objective, and critical review of this contract before we sign ourselves up to 50 years and $500 million. Thank you.
Is it Valley Uback?
Thank you all for being here and for all of you showing up and supporting the opposition to this plan. And I appreciate you. I know this is probably not easy to face this group with our concerns and our displeasure with this plan. I want to ask you what the duration would be, the time of construction. We would do a general purpose plan versus a hot one. You don't know?
I don't believe it's look.
Then what would the time difference like? Is it 2 years to just run general purpose lanes in the areas that's congested versus going all the way down?
Any construction of lanes, I would assume would take 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years for the hot lanes, or 2 to 3 years for general purpose lanes?
Oh, for both.
So what we've asked for, the original plan that we saw from Bill Cox from the Huntersville Transportation Commission was, it was going to be $75 million to widen I-77 where it was the most congested. That's a simple plan. You showed us a very, very complex plan. It looks like it could take years and years to build. No offense to Parsons Blankenhoff, but you haven't had a great track record. There's the Boston Big Dig, sinkhole in LA, cost overruns. And my concern is if we just merely widen the road where we need it, that would be a much simpler project. What you have proposed is a massive road project, bridges, flyover. And it could take years and years and years. And you've talked a lot about the location. I have a suggestion for a location. I suggest you take it to Montana. The reason is Montana doesn't have a nuclear power plant. We have one here. And I think that would be best for free market policy versus a public-private partnership. We take our tax paid right away. You take control of what we've been maintaining and paying with our taxpayer dollars. And what you're doing is you are taking that, giving it to a corporation, investors. Parsons has a political action committee, a PAC, KPMG, you donate. You donated to our politicians. Parsons, you also donate to politicians. You're taking millions of dollars from taxpayers and from the public people, and my children, and their children. Ask them, think about that, what you're doing. That's tyranny. Second thing I want to bring up, I want to know if we are even in compliance with McGuire Nuclear Plant. And if you've got us under 4 years or more, which Parsons, I know you planned this, I know you're not doing the construction, but you're the planner. And if we have this massive project and we've got people trying to evacuate because of an emergency, a terrorist attack, they will not be able to get out. You're going to have us on a radioactive road. And I would like you to think about just widening it in the simple, most efficient, cost-effective way you can. That would be in the range of 80 to 130 million. We won't be under a contract for 50 or more years.
Yes.
The third thing I want to mention is that when we heard about the study, I thought it was going to be a group of engineers doing an objective study. I did not know that the company hired the corporation, Parsons Brinkerhoff. A major part of their business is tolling. I know you like the public-private partnership, and yes, we do have a boondoggle here for you. I don't think it's been objective at all. We, the public, were led to believe that you had an independent study and a recommendation, and your business is tolling. And that is not honest, and that's not forthright with the people. I also, I want to know too, if we will find out, how will we know that you're not going to be giving money to our politicians? For instance, I know that Speaker Tom Tillis has been wanting to push this project. And he has made it very clear to the town leaders and our MPO, MUMPO, that they better vote what he wants for this project. And he's running for U.S. Senate. And the Parsons Brinkerhoff PAC money would sure come in handy for that Senate run. KPMG also donates, so does Granite Construction, Life Construction. I looked through that list, and boy, it was so familiar because I'd seen where they donated money to other campaigns. I want to know, how do I know that our leaders are not going to be rewarded for this travesty that is happening to us? So I appreciate you standing here. I know it's not fun, but I just want you to understand what it's like for us as citizens. And we feel like we're being fleeced. And I guess I have one last question. How much have you all made off of this? I mean, it was an incredible presentation, but I mean, with that, I have paid you millions of dollars for all this work and all the studies over the years. Money that could have been going to just building general purpose lanes to begin with. And I just want to know, will that be, NCDOT answers me that, will that be revealed to us how much we paid KPMG, Nossaman, Parsons Brinkerhoff, and Atkins for their environmental impact study?
It's FOIA.
Well,
It's what?
Freedom of Information Act. They may not be able to get it to you, but you.
We'll have to get that up. I just want you to know there's a lot of angry people. There's a reason we're called Charter Hill State. We're going to drag our heels through this one.
Chuck Sater.
Suter.
Suter.
All right, excuse my cough, ladies and gentlemen. I actually really don't have any questions. I just really have a statement. Public-private partnerships are the beginning of fascism. That's why it became so unpopular in the state of Texas that they actually had to change the name of public-private partnerships. I'm a Republican, and if you're not, what's wrong with you? But, you know, if you're a Democrat, this would work out really good for you. And, you know, if I'm a Democrat running for office, what I would say is, well, look, guys, since the invention of the automobile, there hasn't been a single toll road public-private partnership here in the state of North Carolina. You give the Republicans control, and what do you get? The whole entire state taken over by public-private partnerships. Excuse me. This is a part of Agenda 21, the United Nations program. You familiar? You're not? Parsons isn't familiar with Agenda 21?
I work for DOT, so no.
Oh, okay, but with DOT, I mean, the Parsons folks, anybody familiar with Agenda 21? Anybody in the audience familiar with Agenda 21? Show of hands. Very good. Yeah, what Agenda 21 is what you want to create bottlenecks so that people are forced to live in the city of Charlotte. So you have, it's multi-purpose. It's controlling the way humans are able to move around with their families, you know. They want to make smaller, smaller family sizes, all that stuff. But it was very interesting. Ted Cruz, who I think is an awesome politician. Any of you guys heard of Ted Cruz? Yeah. Ted Cruz was down by 29% to David Dewhurst, who was the lieutenant governor in Texas, Rick Perry's errand boy. Okay, he's down by 29% with a month to go in the election. 29%. He won by 9 because he came out against toll roads. That's how insane unpopular these things are. And it's not just North Carolina. It'll start here. But it's really part of what Rick Perry was putting in the Trans-Texas Corridor. And then that's the superhighway that will spread out across our entire country. And so everywhere you go, just like in some places in Europe, you pay by the mile. Not only a gasoline tax, but you'll pay by the mile. So what you guys are doing and what, the Republican majority are doing is they are enacting Agenda 21. I have a little bit of evidence to back this up. Governor Pat McCrory actually at a conference, I think it was out in Arizona maybe a few years ago, he said, yeah, we've just got to figure out a way to package sustainability so that the people around the different states will be able to accept it and not see it as this grand Agenda 21 United Nations project. He actually called himself, and people might know the word sustainability, Agenda 21. Pat McCrory calls himself Mr. Sustainability. It's completely Agenda 21. There's no reason, anybody can drive up this road. I'm going to make a video actually, where I drive up the road and just show how you so easily can just add one lane, and then time lapse. I thought that would be cool. And for $100 million. But you guys want to spend $550 million for what we need for a $100 million road. And Parsons Brinkerhoff is going to have a 50-year contract. Some people have wondered, Howard Cosell, right? Everybody loves Howard Cosell, right? He was a character, but, NBC probably would have gotten rid of him earlier, tried to get rid of him. The reason they couldn't get rid of Howard Cosell, anybody know why? He wrote his own contract. Just like Parsons Brinkerhoff is writing their own contract. Thank you very much.
That's out. As any member of the team was contributing to the development of the contract, is precluded from bidding on.
We can't hear you. You gotta have to talk in the mic.
Parsons Brinkerhoff did not bid on this contract. They were part of the team. They cannot bid on they cannot profit from this. They cannot be part of the P3.
They already have profited, right?
That's not what you're saying.
Next, sir.
Not only can they not participate in the procurement, the bidding process, but the bidders are prohibited from contacting anyone at Parsons Brinkerhoff, KPMG,
Adkins. There's a list of firms in the RFP, excuse me, the contract on the website.
Yeah. No, it's not.
I can say that, they can run it every.
I'm Howard Peabody, I live off Lane Tree Road. I'm a lifelong resident of North Carolina.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. I'm a lifelong resident of North Carolina, except for 1 year. Moved here when I was a year old, and I've driven I-77 since 1980. Started up in Elkin, North Carolina, commuting to the Charlotte Airport. So I'm very, very, very familiar with every inch of that road, trust me. I'm still commute, but I moved down the Lane Tree Road so I can get a little bit closer to where I was working. And so there's been a lot of recent politics here tonight, and most of you may know this. If you're from North Carolina, you know what I'm getting ready to say. If you're not, then I'm going to hopefully give you what I'm like. These gentlemen from DOT, unfortunately, they have to listen to all of us tonight, and they're just not their fault what they do. They work for the state of North Carolina. So for the most part, they are affected by politics in the state. For years, this state, since Reconstruction, the roads been built contrary to where we build airports where airplanes land. But we don't necessarily build roads where the traffic light is. Because the formulas have all been set up. Now, I don't have all the details, but this state has controlled how roads were built by the local DOT representatives, which were politically connected to the administration at the time. So if it's your turn to get a road, your district, you got a road. The money was allocated. Not all of it, but a portion of the money was allocated that way. So that's why 77 has ended up being what it has been since 1980s. It's basically the same road, as you all know, except for parts of it. There have been bulges made in along the way, which just make it worse. So, again, it's not DOT's fault. DOT's trying to fix the problem. But I agree with several of the statements in here. Mr. Scott, I believe, said it. I would suggest to cool it off, slow down, let this new program start that the governor has enacted. Allegedly, it's going to be better distribution of the funds. To me, the roads should be built where the gas tax is collected and where the cars are. You got roads in eastern North Carolina, 4-lane roads, traffic count hardly nothing to nowhere. Go to western North Carolina, same way. But again, that's the cronyism, political cronyism going on, cronyism for all these years in North Carolina. Now, the ironic thing is, this gentleman mentioned, here we are now, for the first time since Reconstruction, we have a Republican, forget your politics, I'm talking about from the road standpoint, we got a Republican administration. I've had communication with, not the governor, but most of other people in the legislature. I could name all the names, you know if I call them. For whatever reason, they're like, hands off this, they don't even want to talk about it. It's strange. And the last thing I have to say, if it's such a great idea in Tennessee, I'd love to know, number one, why the pick 77? Why don't we go over the state?
Well, actually, we do have other projects in the Raleigh area that are studying.
But my short story is, it's a political problem. You're going to have to solve it with politics. It's only legal to solve. Long term.
Remember, state your name, Andrew.
Mary Lou Richardson, Huntersville, Illinois. I think it's kind of curious.
We're from Illinois.
Oh. I think it's kind of curious because I did not know Parsonsburg Rock was going to be here today, let alone David. But your question number one, it says, do you feel like adding the HOT lanes will help reduce congestion? Well, I listened to David, I believe it was the second week in February when you were up here. And you said, quote, this is not to reduce congestion, but it will give those who are willing to pay a congestion-free experience. And I have quoted that, I have it written down, and one of my little guy's friends has that on tape. Second of all, the on and off ramps. This is a lake community. We go from 23 as a hospital, we go up to Burkdale, we go up to the lake area. Where are we going to get on and off? Well, I don't think we are. So therefore, we're going to be congesting 21 and 115. 115 goes through Davidson, one of the most historic, beautiful towns of our state. I cannot believe that they're not up in arms. And the other thing is, don't forget, if we were doing bonds, state bonds, this would be 3% of the money. But these guys have to make 12%. And whether it's HOV and HOT, it's we are paying the taxes, the people are going to end up paying.
Thank you, Mayor. To answer your question about the access points in this northern area, there will be an access point between Catawba Avenue and Griffith Street.
Okay.
And Brawley School Road and between exit 35 and 36, Brawley School.
So how do you get off at the hospital?
There will be
On 23rd.
those are the only two proposed access points.
So we can't get off, and we're going to be relegated to, I mean, that's fine, but tell us, HOT, how you're going to give the people in our 13 miles more, a free lane. We can't even use the HOT lanes, but you're going to congest our area.
There is a future project that is proposing general purpose lanes, but it's some years out. It would be sometime after 2020.
So if you're at exit 28, you can't get into the hot lanes? No. That's right. If you're at exit 28, you can't even get into the hot lanes?
The access point is between 28 and 30.
So if I gotta go downtown, I'm stuck in the general purpose no matter what? Really?
Yeah, well, there'll be another access point for the south.
About 18, 19.
Wow. So you can solve nothing.
Exit 20.
That solves nothing.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yes, hello.
Please respect, please.
I thank you all for being here tonight. My name is William Rakatansky. I live in Cornelius. I've lived in Cornelius for 26 years. I drive Interstate 77 every day to South Charlotte, where my office is. I also, in 1993 and 1995, I was a Cornelius Town Commissioner. So I understand how politics works on a local level. But I have 4 questions. The first question I have is, because this is a 50-year contract for the private concessionaire, okay, what studies and projections for traffic count and congestion analysis for the contract time of 50 years has been done? Because I can envision that as 10, 20, 30, or 40 years go down the road, and as more people move to this area, it will continue to congest not only the general purpose lanes, but also the HOT lanes if they are built. Okay? So what studies have been done for the projection time of those increments up to 50 years? Okay? The second question I have is a little more political in a way, but one of the things that you presented on the slide, which was kind of enlightening, is that the adjacent or nearby property owners can vote for or against the noise walls that you want to build. Well, I guess that's all well and good, but why were not the citizens who were being affected by this toll lane proposal not given the opportunity to also vote for or against the toll lanes? The third question I have is, because I drive Interstate 77 every day, I've memorized how many lanes there are at different mile markers. At or around mile marker 19, thereabouts, heading northbound on 77, the high occupancy vehicle lane changes, it stops, it ends, and it continues on as a free general purpose lane. Will that free general purpose lane be converted to an HOT lane? If it will,
My understanding is that violates federal law. And my fourth question is, for economic interest of this entire North Mecklenburg, South Iredell, and even the Charlotte region, there's more and more semi-truck traffic traversing Interstate 77 every day. I see it. It's gotten so much worse. Right now, the proposal, the RFP, states that the semi-trucks must stay in the general purpose lanes. They are going to be prohibited from using the HOT lanes. If that's the case, that first of all says to me that congestion in the general purpose lanes will at some point in the future be untenable. Secondly, if the trucks are in the general purpose lanes and they're side to side, okay, they can pose a safety hazard to regular motorists and vehicles and cars. And I guess thirdly, I think DOT and the private operator may be missing out a huge opportunity to reap lots of money, huge amounts of money, by not prohibiting the trucks from using the HOT lanes. Think about it. They're heavy vehicles, they're long vehicles, and as a result, the trucks could theoretically really boost the profitability of the concessionaire because they are such large vehicles and the concessionaire can charge more. Those are my questions.
And it gets more for GP.
Thank you, appreciate it.